This is Dustin Leimgruber. I directed Shine Like Stars, and I am joined here by Al Hagemann from Wisconsin.
Hello, everyone.
Al's in
And I
Wisconsin.
was the producer and did some sound recording for the film.
Yeah, Al's in Wisconsin, and I am in L.A. as we record this. And it started off here with the Blue Bag Pictures logo and a little bit of backstory on the Blue Bag Pictures logo. That was Al's invention. I don't take any credit for Blue Bag Pictures. The bag that the camera came in, the Canon XL1, which we shot the film on, was a blue bag, and Al was usually tasked with shouldering that bag while I was filming, and I think he held a little bit of resentment towards me as a result. And then when he asked me to name the LLC, and I kept putting it off, he went ahead and registered Blue Bag Pictures. I think as a sort of stick in my eye.
Yeah, I had to carry that bag around with me for a number of shows, so I thought it was fitting to make it the feature of the company that we created. Yeah, it was annoying carrying that bag around for sure. There was a lot of shows. How many shows was it all told?
10 shows. We filmed 10 shows, 45 hours worth of show footage, and I think it was about 5 hours worth of interview footage.
So that was 50 hours of me carrying that blue bag around.
So we start off here with the band intros. I wanted to say before Ron Sexsmith on the billboard there, along with U2 Zoo with the Shane Call billboard, I think he gets a lot more attention and exposure than he's ever realizing that he's been getting. So Brian is telling his Bono story here. We filmed that at the House of Guinness, which also happened to be, apparently, from what they say, the very first place where they played a gig. It just happened to work out that way. We're going to meet the band one by one here, and we start out with Craig, who, Al, as you can back me up, everyone told us would be the hardest person.
Yes, they were warning us for like months leading up to these interviews that Craig is the hardest guy to get. You guys have to really work hard. You know, he doesn't want to do an interview, or he doesn't feel comfortable with that. But I personally think he did a fantastic job and thought he really came off very well.
He did. He was the most entertaining, I think, of all the interviews. People seem to dig his interviews the most out of anybody in the movie. So he was pitched to us as the hardest guy to corral, and sure enough, he was hard to corral. We had to do that interview at Shank Hall before a show, and you can even see behind in some of his shots. There's lights flashing, and that's the opening act for U2's rehearsing, which ruined the last half of our interview because they were sound checking. So we had a lot of footage we couldn't use, but we did.
It was also our first interview too.
That was our very first interview. Yeah, we did that. We shot all the concerts first, and then we did the interviews at the end, so we could sort of make sure the band was comfortable with us, and also so that we could kind of get to know the band over the course of a year, which took 12 months to shoot.
Yeah, it definitely worked out very well. I was not quite sure about shooting it that way, but the band was really, with the interview parts, they really opened up to us a lot more. I think they would have had we just started out with interviewing them right out of the gate, or interviewing them too early. Like once they kind of saw some of the shots we put together for them, and
Exactly.
what we were kind of looking to do, I think they really opened up to us and made the documentary so much better by giving much more introspective look at what the band is like.
Exactly. That I think was key in pulling off the interviews, because the way that we approached them, we should probably go back to the origins of how this all started, which was
Excellent.
I had seen them in 2005, and Al and I had just returned from Ireland. We went to see the Vertigo, the U2 Vertigo show at Croke Park, and about a week later, U2 Zoo was playing at Summerfest, which is a huge music festival in Milwaukee. And I'd seen them from afar, from across the festival grounds. I heard a U2 song, and I thought, well, what's that? Some band covering a U2 song. And as I got closer, I realized that it was a band that was doing all U2 songs, and it was a band that was dressed up like U2. And I was like, well, this is a joke. Who do these guys think they are? This is going to be hilarious. So I got a little closer, and I was kind of waiting for it to be a disaster. And the more I heard, the more I thought, well, they really sound good. I almost didn't want to admit that they sounded good, because how dare they try to be U2, or how dare they try to play U2's music as a huge U2 fan. But I was converted that day, and kind of fell by the wayside. It didn't occur to me at that moment that it might be an interesting subject for a documentary. And then a few years later, it's 2008, was it, that you and I went to River Splash?
Yeah, 2008, definitely.
River
Yep.
Splash in Milwaukee, and
Hmm.
again, U2 Zoo was playing their big street festival, and we just took a little bit of like handheld camera footage with a little still camera and watched the show, and we sort of kick it around the idea this might be an interesting documentary as a short subject. So, and then just as a side note, there was a riot that night. Wasn't that the night of the riot?
Yes.
The River
Yeah, we
Splash riot.
barely missed the riot. It was that the first place we went to. It was crazy because we were sitting around talking about how what we could do with this documentary and come up with some ideas and things. And we drove home, didn't really think anything of it. Then the news was just like big riots. I think they shut down River
They
Splash
did. They
eventually. I
shut
don't think
down. The
it
band left stage. I
actually.
remember. I heard that Brian was ducking behind some of the gear. Probably not the heroic image that he wants to project. Maybe I should edit that out of the commentary. I don't know if that's a true story. I just heard that from someone, so that could.
Yeah, well, it happened like within seconds of us walking. Like we walked right past the riots, realizing we were so interested in talking about this documentary and coming up with some ideas that we apparently missed an entire riot.
We
going
walked right
on,
through it without
right
even realizing.
behind us, basically.
The horses are gathering and the mounted police. But
Yeah.
so I approached the band via email and just asked if they'd be interested, and we sat down and talked. And the whole point of telling the story is that they didn't know us. We didn't have a track record, really. I mean, I've been screenwriting for a few years. I hadn't really shot any films. Al had never done anything like this before.
Hmm.
So it was all on faith. And I thought, we can't just jump in and start talking to these guys, interviewing these guys. They don't even know who we are. We don't really know who they are. So we decided that we would shoot all the shows first for 1 year. We were going to film for 1 year, the big shows. They probably played maybe 14 or 15 shows over the course of that year, and we filmed 10 of them. And we were going to climax with Summerfest, the big Summerfest show, which we did. And then we interviewed him at the end, and it ended up being great. We should talk about the crew, or lack thereof.
I think the crew is basically on this segment here.
Yeah, this is the crew. We had one additional guy, Nick Weiss, who couldn't join us tonight, but he worked second camera on some of the shows, and he recorded the audio during the interview segments. But that was it.
Yeah,
It was just
help.
Al and I.
Hmm. And then I guess John helped us out a lot too.
John did. John Holy came in after the fact and helped out with some of the technical problems we had after we started editing the movie.
And he made our awesome website.
And he put our website together, exactly, and did a lot of the more technical stuff and saved our asses many times on the film. But we filmed it with a Canon XL1 camera. That was it, and then we had a Panasonic, like a little crappy Handycam that we used on a couple of shows. Nick filmed with the Handycam, so he made it look really good. What I found with the Handycam is that when we were filming in color, of course, it looks terrible, and it wouldn't cut with the Canon stuff at all. But if you click it over to black and white, it gives it this weird sort of like almost like rattle and hum, grainy, 16 millimeter kind of gritty feel. And I thought that could be fun to sort of intermix some footage. Plus, you get a different feel when you're shooting with a little light camera like that. You can move around a lot more. You can do more with getting close and zooming and all kinds of stuff like that. So it was fun to play. I shot one whole show with the Handycam myself, and then Nick shot a couple of shows with the Handycam as our backup camera, and we used a lot of that footage. Our audio was recorded with the same device we're recording this. I mean, we're very low tech. Sony MP3 recorder that Al would plug into the soundboard. And most of the music in the movie is soundboard recordings. There's a couple of tracks that were professionally mixed tracks that we got from Mobile Audio Tracks. Is that the name of them?
Yeah, that sounds
It's an
correct.
outfit
Yeah.
that works with U2 Zoo and records some of their shows. And those are great tracks. Streets and Silver and Gold and Magnificent, I think, are the tracks in the movie that have that.
Yeah, the audio recorder was pretty neat. I mean, I basically looked it up on the internet. We're like, we wanted to get some better audio because we had some like in-camera stuff. The problem with the in-camera is that as you move us around making different shots, it kind of messes up the audio. So kind of search around for some ideas, and I found this thing online. It's this little Sony device. It's about the size of your finger, really. And because we weren't sure about it, I think I went to Best Buy and bought one there so I could return it afterwards. And we went to the Harley show. Was the show I think that we were getting ready for, and we're like looked up how to record off like a soundboard or something, and we basically went to like a DJ store, and I think for all told like $100 between the recorder and the cables, we had our own audio set up essentially, and we took it to the show, and we looked at it, and between all the gender benders and things that went from this big, huge, thick monster cable down to this little tiny digital recording device that ran on like a AAA battery. It's like, I don't know if this is going to work out too well. I just thought the thing was going to like start on fire or something. Or it's completely like melt down and, cause some sort of scene at the thing. Be like, what happened to the sound? Like, well, who plugged that into the soundboard or whatever?
Exactly. That was something I was terrified of, that we were plugging into these, thousands of dollars worth of soundboard mixing equipment with our little like $80 MP3 player, that we were going to blow out not just the soundboard but the whole show.
Right. We like look you over and pointing at us or something.
That was my second biggest fear. My first biggest fear was tripping on stage with the camera in front of 10,000 people. Fortunately, that didn't happen. It came close a couple of times, but didn't happen. It actually came closer at the premiere. Did I tell you that I almost tripped on the carpet as we were walking across the stage for a Q&A?
Really?
Oh my God, I still have nightmares about that. It was like our moment of glory, and I almost made a complete ass out of myself. So let's talk real quick. You
also...
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, they're doing the T-shirt toss right now. I remember they also walked out of the crowd and did some crowd shots.
Yeah.
You weren't just on the stage, but you actually kind of followed behind them and stuff, because you were talking about almost tripping and stuff, and that's got to be traumatic, just trying to weed your way through the crowd and catch, glimpses of him and not wipe out or smack into someone.
Speaking of the T-shirts, I want to mention that I was very, very jealous of all the people that were getting T-shirts the whole time that we were filming. I never received a T-shirt for the first, 8 shows and 7 or 8 shows that we filmed. And why should I, right? I'm busy, I get the camera, I'm filming, blah, blah, blah. But that whole time I'm thinking, I really want that T-shirt. Just like the audience. I'm like, I really want a U2 Zoo T-shirt. So finally I had to go up and ask for a T-shirt. And you didn't get one, I'm sorry. I'll have to... If the band hears this,
okay.
Al would like a U2 Zoo T-shirt.
Yeah, if you're listening to this audio track, please send Al a U2 Zoo T-shirt.
We skipped over... Oh, go ahead.
I was just seeing that some of those clips right now we're seeing is from the Irish Fest show, which I thought was one of the best shows we shot, actually.
Oh,
a lot of the best footage came from that particular show. I don't know if you want to elaborate a little bit on the just the lighting and stuff that they put in for that show made the camera, I think, really pop, and really made things really light up on screen. I thought it was really cool.
That was a great looking show, and it had a huge audience, and we had a tower at that show. Like, there was the big it was like a light tower that we could climb up into.
With like the mixing boards on the bottom, like the lighting, like the spotlights on top.
Yeah, that was an amazing setup. It was a great stage. It was a huge, epic looking stage. Big crowd. I was really into it. The band sounded great that night. There's a lot of footage in the movie from that night, and the lights just worked. That was the thing about the light package that they had. They started out with nothing, really. When we first started filming them, they had some basic stuff, and they would utilize whatever the venue had. But when they brought in their movers and they added those screens, they just have it's like 3 or 4 screens that they set up behind them. But if you flash colored lights on them, it adds this whole new dimension to the stage.
Right, you can see like that shot right there of like just the whole stage with all the lighting and the movers and stuff. Amazing. It's amazing, that progression where, like some of those early shows just had like one like green light in the corner or whatever, and then as they progressed on, it the light got better and really made the camera work, I think, pop and made it look really sharp.
I remember filming that House of Guinness show, which was like the darkest show of all the shows that we filmed. They had nothing. They had like 2 lights, and trying to make that stuff look interesting because it's still a 2.5, 3 hour show sometimes, and it's not. We wanted to make it worth our while. We didn't shoot any shows where we just walked away and said, well, that was a complete waste of time. There's footage from every single one of the shows that we filmed in the movie. But that was the biggest challenge, was when we get to a place and first of all, there's nowhere to move to. So you can only get, a few different angles. So you really had to play with, how tight can you get on somebody? How can you use the light? Shooting directly into the lights and trying to frame them against the lights. But before they had their big light package, that was really the challenge. Craig is the one guy in the band that I think has it easy when it comes to dress up. Granted, Larry Mullen does not have like a dress up look. How do you dress up like Larry Mullen? But I feel like Craig gets off easy because the other three do the look. Scott does the Bono thing. We get it. Brian does the Edge. We get it. And definitely, I think, strangely to me, of all three of the other guys, Mike is the one that looks the most like Adam Clayton. Although, really looking at it now, he doesn't look anything like him. But I guess in my mind, he kind of has something about him. I don't know. Maybe it's the glasses or something. But Craig gets off so easy.
Yeah, it's true. Like, what does Larry Mullen's look really? It's just like a T-shirt and...
Yeah, white T-shirt, and I guess he could wear the white T-shirt and the earring and, like, the buzz cut. Unless he wanted to do, like, a Rattle and Hum era. Well, that was the Rattle and Hum era, wasn't it?
Has Larry Mullen really ever changed his look?
I don't think so.
Is he like the one guy in YouTube that didn't change, like, his look over the years?
I don't think so. No, I think you're right. I don't think he's really changed his look. He doesn't really have a defined look, except for maybe in the discotheque video.
Oh, the discotheque video, of course.
Maybe Craig should do the discotheque Larry Mullen Jr.
That's the most memorable one.
Here's Mike's, this is an emotional night. Remember, Brian told us that Mike's mother had passed away before that show started, and that was the actual show. I think I mentioned that on the other commentary, if we include that. That was the actual show that he was talking about there. So I made sure that we kind of watched him there, because I knew that it would be a really tough night for him to get through. So, but I'm glad that it ended up coming off so well, because it was very powerful, I think.
Yeah, it really, Mike portrayed as like the family man or whatever, really kind of hit home with that angle to him. It came across very well. It worked out well in the documentary style, where you don't really know what you're going to get. Kind of piece things together, and that's one of those ones that really came together well and helped make a good story out of this.
We missed the Summerfest bit, but I was going to ask you about your thoughts on Huey Lewis, who they opened up for.
Huey Lewis, I don't know, it was hilarious. They brought their giant, oh, first of all, I guess we have to go backstage, which seems like an exciting, elaborate, amazing place. It's really actually just a dude laying on a couch, in the back in a trailer somewhere. But Huey Lewis's band came in with his big buses, and then they made us all, after the U2 Zoo show got done, they made us all take 2 steps back for Huey Lewis to give him enough room to get through. Like, they had to make like a 5-foot wide
clear the path,
berth, something for him that, they had to make a big path to get through to walk to the stage.
Mr. Lewis is coming.
It was a little ridiculous.
I don't remember having to clear the path for the news, though. The news.
Yeah, the news get ripped off. I think the news should drop Huey Lewis and go on their. There's no reason, the news, they've been there for a long time. They could get by without
the news. Can go on and on. Huey Lewis is a finite career.
Yeah, exactly.
But
1987 was the end of.
Yeah, he was a little rough that night. Maybe it's not like that all the time, but coming off of U2 Zoo, it was quite a contrast, which is weird to say because they're just you think, oh, they're just a tribute band and Huey Lewis is Huey Lewis, but I think that because they're perceived as they're just a tribute band, they try, they put more into the show than they would, if it was just a national act that's just showing up, playing a gig and getting a paycheck.
I mean, it's not easy. I mean, one of the things we got to see is the progression. I mean, they went to big stages at Summerfest and at Irish Fest, and these huge stages, and they brought their big light show, and I mean, they really commanded the stage and brought a big performance. I mean, that's not easy to do, even if a band like Huey Lewis, they go up there, they don't have quite the lighting show, and it's Lewis on a harmonica up there. I mean, it's neat, but I mean, you have to bring like a big show element to it, get the crowd involved, and
that was the other thing. Yeah, Summerfest. Remember Summerfest? They weren't allowed to use their lighting package.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that was. But they still were able to. They still shows up well on screen. They were able to bring the crowd in.
Came out great. I mean, they made up for the lack of pyrotechnics with just a really powerful performance. So here's one Scott does this song solo every night.
And amazing.
And amazing. The highlight of the show for a lot of people. It's something that you don't see U2 do. Well, you've seen U2 with not Staring at the Sun, Sunday Bloody Sunday. Edge did that solo during the pop tour, where it's just a guy and a guitar and a song, and there's nothing else. And I think that's certainly the way to do some songs, particularly songs that have been played a million times. And Brian says that they'll never go back to do one as the full band again. It'll always just be Scott, because it's like a highlight of the show. Unfortunately, that ended up being the crappiest audio that we had of all of the one performances. But that was the best performance, I think, out of all the 10 ones that we shot.
Yeah,
So,
and that one's hard too, because I mean, you have to have like audio has to match perfectly with the guy on the screen, so you have to be really particular about the audio when you use
exactly.
there.
That fade there is where we transition into the Summerfest one. So it's funny because it goes from the first show that we ever filmed, which was the close-up of Scott singing, and that's just camera audio right off the camera. And then the music that fades up when we go into the montage of the band together is from Summerfest. So first show and last show. The Pewaukee show, being the first show, we didn't really intend on any of that footage being used in the movie. It was more of a test run for the equipment and a test run for just the process of shooting this band, just to get a feel for it. And we had a couple cameras on. We actually ended up using a lot of footage from that show. We didn't have anything plugged into the soundboard either, so all we had that night was camera audio. I remember this show was the longest show we filmed was about 4 hours, maybe a little longer. So by the end of that show, I could barely lift my arms. Here's the finale. I talked a little bit on the other commentary that this is not designed to be was not designed ever to be a feature. There's really no way you can make this a 2-hour, 90-minute movie.
Definitely.
But the other thing that I wanted to mention is that we really didn't, it's easy to look at this film, and I'm certainly conscious of this, particularly, as a screenwriter, that there's necessarily a story arc to the short. It's more of an expose or like a profile of the band. But we didn't have access to their jobs. We didn't have access to their families. We didn't have access to their personal life and all that stuff. And that was something that was discussed the very first time I sat down with them. They're very intensely private guys. So we were not invited into those areas. So it was a matter of, okay, if we want to do this, we have the shows and we have the individual band members, and that's it. Well, what can we do to make this work? So what we had to try to do is craft some kind of not necessarily a storyline, but some sort of profile of these guys and what they do purely out of concert footage and the individual interviews. That's why you don't see, when they're talking about their job, that's why you don't see them at their job. Would have been nice, but it just wasn't access that we were granted. So we worked with what we had, but I still think that there's something to be said about not going into those aspects. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I kind of like not going in there because really it's about them as the band. It's just kind of like laying some, putting out some layers. And I think you get something with the audio still of like, you get the feel for how these guys are really quite different. They don't really seem like they have a lot in common outside of the band. That makes it kind of interesting to me.
That's true.
Kind of that, what's it like being in a band, or how do these guys get into the band? That's why I think it's cool we kind of covered those things and kind of made it by going into like those families getting like some of the shots from their jobs. You kind of take away from the band, I think, too. It's really kind of like it's about being in a band, really, is how I kind of describe in 3 words or less what this is about. And it's really cool to me how they've come together and they made like a really great team out of a bunch of folks who you wouldn't think would necessarily get along or hang out or really interact with each other that often. And yet they come together and they are a great team and they put on a great show. I mean, it's really an interesting way that they've put their group together, and it makes it really cool.
Yeah, that was something that they said when all of them, I think, said that they don't hang out together. They're not quote unquote friends in that sense that they go on. I think that they do more now, but at the time that we did the interviews, they weren't hanging out on the weekends together. I just saw that they went and did a golf tournament together over the weekend. So Craig and Mike and Brian. So they must be doing more of that now. But at the time, it was all about the band. It was all about the music. And it was that unit where they're all these disparate guys that have their own lives and families and jobs and everything. But when they come together, it creates this thing, whatever this thing is, this energy. And that's ultimately, I think, the point of this project. And you and I were filming for a while before we started to hone in on what this was really about. Not about four guys in a band, but it's about the idea of success, and what does that mean? Do you have to have a record deal? Do you have to be doing this professionally to be successful? I think the perception a lot of time is that you have to be selling records, and you have to be on TV, and you have to be touring, and you have to be doing this full time to be considered successful at what you're doing. I think the fact that they are able to lead normal lives and play at this level, as Brian says, that's a success in and of itself. And in a lot of ways, it's more of a success than those who will commit their whole lives to it, because they have the best of both.
Completely amazing that they can do this just, in their spare time. They can bring this big show.
Exactly.
It's unbelievable.
That's, to me, that's the theme of the movie, is it's the question of what is success. And these guys are a perfect example. To anybody who's ever tried to break in to any kind of industry, it doesn't necessarily just the music industry or the film industry or the entertainment industry in general. It can be anything. Just because you're not doing it professionally doesn't mean that you're not successful at it. It doesn't mean that you can't be happy at what you're doing. And they're right there, Scott says, we have, in terms of, finding success, making it. So that seemed like a perfect place to end the movie. And then Scott wrote this awesome song for us.
The song is excellent, and I believe it's on iTunes.
It is on iTunes, yes. It's on iTunes for purchase. So go there and buy it. It's a great song. It's an extended version. You don't get the extended version. We had to cut it down for the credits because otherwise the credits would be longer than the movie. But yeah, it's a great song. I asked him if he'd be interested in writing an original song, because the whole movie is U2 music, so I thought it'd be fun to show that they they have a different side of him too, particularly Scott, who writes his own music and performs different kinds of music all the time. And within a week, he turned this thing around, and I was stunned. When I first pressed play, I was a little nervous because I thought, what if it sucks? What am I going to say? But it was more perfect than I could possibly imagine. And we are almost out of time here. So, but this was fun, and
fast.
Yeah, it went really fast. But thanks for listening again. And there are multiple tracks, I believe, on this DVD, so please listen to them all. And not that you have any interest in listening to them all, but if you're really a nerd like us, please listen to them all.
Please do, and thanks for helping out and supporting us.
Yeah, and thanks to everybody that supported this movie, particularly the Wisconsin Film Festival, the U2 Zoo fans, and then, of course, all the people that are thanked here, friends and family. John Waters was thanked. We're out of time. I can't explain. I'll explain that elsewhere. But goodbye. Good night. Thank you.
See you later.